Last Standee, a board game podcast coming at you from 5 exciting countries across Europe. I'm joined here today by Alexis,
Hi, that's me.
Alessio,
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone.
Audrey.
Here.
Oh,
No,
a
I
bit.
mean, I mean today it's 4 exciting countries.
Yes, okay. All
Sorry, I
right.
blocked because last time you adapted.
I was gonna say not David.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Well, we'll
No, we
no,
keep it.
no, 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 no. I'm not finishing the intro now. I'll say four.
No,
Like
that's going
I,
to be a humorous, very introductory intro.
all
Ju-
right, all
just,
right.
just put a four
All right,
there.
fine. Don't scratch it. Let's go. All right, okay. Not David, located in Germany, and I am your host, Fen. We'll be talking about a range of different board games from across the hobby. We'll start today with the Standee Catch-up. So, Alessio, what have you been up to?
Oh, this week I received my odd pledge from Kickstarter, so I was doing stuff for the podcast. I was doing stuff for the podcast and gorging in that goodness because actually it has a high production value. It's super cool, but I think I'll do an unboxing video, so you will see.
All right, okay.
Video, so you will see.
All right, okay. And Audrey, how about you?
Yeah, I'm good, I would say. Last weekend, or the one before, yeah, last weekend with my boyfriend, we went to the board game store here and we bought Bees. Their heritage game as a second hand. It was just open, so it was 40% off. And Everdell. So we played Bees yet. Vampire is going to wait because we have the Tainted Grail campaign, which is still on. Waiting till we finish a campaign game before we start another one. And the
Oh,
next one will probably be Pandemic Legacy Season 0. Anyway.
I wish to have your problems. Actually, I want Tainted Grail so bad. My
It's a good
Kickstarter
problem to have.
will never arrive. Will
Yeah,
never arrive.
I think I made the best choice when I selected 2 waves delivery.
Yeah. Okay, kids who listen, never get two single wave language edition from Awaken Realms. It's becoming a meme.
A
I
meme.
second that.
A meme.
Yeah, never get one
No,
wave shipping with language edition.
not a meme, a meme. Is that how it's
Meme.
pronounced in
Okay, well,
Italian?
yeah, that's Italian with a bit of Greek. So yeah, meme,
Okay,
meme.
okay, sure. And how about the man of mystery, Alexis? What have you been up to?
Busy with IRL stuff, unfortunately, so I haven't been that much able to play. I've played a bit of King's Dilemma with
Dun
Audrey
dun dun.
and a couple of friends, so that has been pretty fun. We're still going through the storyline. I think that we finished two so far. I still need to shell out 70 euros to get it, so
Eh.
that's going to be fun. I'm in talk with APG at the moment to see how the fuck do they got 70 euros of custom fee because
Yeah,
that's
that's a
not
lot.
great. Yeah,
Well, I mean, they could take a leaf out of the book of the Board Game Geek. Oh, I mean, they could take a leaf out of the book of the Board Game Geek store. I received yesterday my Board Game Geek promo delivery that I ordered ages ago because I wanted to get some of the posters for the gaming area, and it just turned up. No tracking, none of that, and wham bam, no customs. They just declared zero value on everything, and I was like, ooh, we shouldn't have done that.
I had a 50 for the pinups of Kingdom Death. I had a 50 euros value on each item, and French Post said, "Go."
Yeah, I had 50 euros for each one too, and I had 50 euros for each one too, and I think 38 and something euros to pay as import
yeah, I'm going
fees.
to check that. I know that the custom handling fee in Belgium is really high, so if the company doesn't declare it properly, they like up the price incredibly. So I don't know if APG just didn't declare it properly or if something happened, but I need to check with all that, and it's not fun.
Um, mine were all declared at $50 a piece, not even euros, but dollars.
Yeah.
Not for typical deliveries, but for criminal ones. Anyway, to get back to it, they actually, I gotta be fair, they do generally do very good customs declarations, but this stuff coming from the warehouse in the UK has, it's had the paperwork, but definitely somebody not knowing what they has been putting the wrong things in here and there.
Yeah, and it's
So
been lasting since Black Friday, but well, I
yeah,
mean, the amount of packages made it worse.
Yeah,
absolutely.
actually, I think we can give this kind of news for anyone who doesn't already know. Adam has declared. For anyone who doesn't already know, Adam has declared, at least in an email, for the people who got after January their Wave 3.1, then see that since Wave 3.2, their APG is Web 3.2. Their APG is taking the fees on them for import charges. So we'll see actually.
I am not exactly sure of that because somewhere in the Kickstarter there was announced by a simple comment. So yeah, okay, that's cool. But the people that were told that Adam Puts Game would handle the fees are the people that will have their Wave 3.1 sent from the US due to the mess of the UK warehouse. So I am not sure that this thing doesn't address just the people that had their.
The news we know. I think that the mail said exactly the only thing we can do is to take charges on us. So this is what we know basically, and we don't know if this will be what will happen actually. So this is just the news. Take it with caution, but this will be what will happen actually. So this is just the news. Take it with caution, but. Uh, take the news.
Yeah, it's hard to say exactly what's going on, and it's not made easier by the company's inability to use their two official channels correctly, as in easier by the company's inability to use their two official channels correctly, as in Kickstarter news, Kickstarter update, not comments, update, and everything else, like say the card pack in the
King's
monthly or
Coin!
whatever emails that are meant to go from the store. Yeah.
Okay, I didn't want to bring that. I want to also say that 1.6 update shouldn't be in Kickstarter updates.
Absolutely. Agreed.
No,
Agreed.
no, no.
No, it's not. It's not a Kickstarter thing. Even though it's been paid for on BackerKick, this was never a Kickstarter thing. This is meant to be a course correction from the company fixing stuff they should have fixed in 1.5 when they were told. And I'm pretty sure there's still stuff they're not going to have fixed because I keep digging and finding more and more things that are just like, are they going to fix this? Probably not.
There's a bunch of people that bought it through the store too, and probably are not in the Kickstarter, and have no reason to check the Kickstarter. So
Absolutely, yeah. Like discussion type thing. Suffice to say, it's still a bit MICKEYMOUSE.
but yeah, that's what's been going on my side. What about you, Fen?
Oh, I always try and dodge this question.
Not
I
today.
I picked up Paleo in German to get to play it a bit. It's
Why in
slow going
German?
because that's the only way I could get it because my UK copy it has gotten like horribly caught up in customs and is having lots of problems.
Oh
So
no.
so I picked it up in German and then David can have it if he wants it, or I've got a few other people I know in Germany who I come to. But I wanted to play it to talk about it a bit further down the line. Um, then I got completely distracted by playing Awkward Guests, which is fascinating. It is a card-based deduction game where they've got like several million different combinations, 3,600 different possible outcomes, or who could have done it, making it massively replayable. And it just has 250 cards, a few preset combinations in the book, and then an app to play all of the rest. You can play it solo, just trying to deduce your way through like a replayable Sherlock Holmes consulting agency.
Ooh.
Or you can play it like competitively with up to 8 other people, with you all sharing information back and forth and trying to be the first person to solve it.
That
It's
sounds fun.
like the artwork's this sepia, weird, kind of slightly funky, odd sort of thing. I was considering whether I was going to do a full piece on it. I think this is enough to just say, if this is the kind of thing you like, if you've played, say, Mystery at the Abbey or Mystery Express or even Cluedo and been like, I want a proper deduction game, but you don't want something that you play once and you're done, like Crime Chronicles or Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, this just fills that space. The app has a few problems. It doesn't, for my phone, it fails to hold attention on the phone, so the phone keeps powering off, and I've had the phone power off and then I booted back up and the case I was following vanished. But
Damn
it's
battery
yeah,
policies.
yeah, that was
The mystery of the Vanity case.
yeah, so I had to restart again from the beginning. And also they've done the thing I hate, which is they've done pads for paper, so you have to write on a pad on a piece of disposable paper. Please, if you're going to do pads in a game, forget that. Do what Railroad Ink did and do laminate with non-permanent markers. Because it's just better. It takes up less space, and I don't have to sit there and look at this pad and be like, I don't really want to use it. I'm gonna have to get 4 of them laminated or 8 of them laminated. So yeah, but I don't know. They must have done this through computer, like procedural generation or something, or a lot of flow charting. I've no idea how they put together the system, because it's like tracking where people have traveled, tracking what weapons they may have used, what motives they have. Um, and all of this, and you will always get to a definitive answer of who did it if you manage to make the deductions. And they're not easy. Like, they did one case where you had to kind of work out that there was that the twins were responsible for it, and what route they'd taken, and they snuck through like cleverly, without being spotted. And it was the gaps where you could work out they did it.
Yeah. Actually, the mechanics of card deduction, which replayable, they are one of the hardest mechanics to achieve right. So if the game is cool, it's actually worth a shot.
Yeah, it is.
Could you restate the name?
Awkward guests.
Okay, that
Yeah.
sounds very fun.
Yep,
Yeah,
yep, it is. It's really stylized. Awkward guests.
Okay, that
Yeah.
sounds very fun.
Yep,
yeah.
yep, it is. It's really stylized. It's really cool. It reminds me of a bit of like Knives Out or Clue, the movie. That kind of fun of deduction. And I hope they do some more, because yeah, of deduction. And I hope they do some more, because yeah, I like it a lot.
Yeah, I bought Arkham Horror Final Hour just because of the card deduction part when you guess the symbols of the ritual. It is part when you guess the symbols of the ritual. It is obviously not focused on the card deduction, but that part was smart, so I bought the game and it actually delivers a bit. So yeah, cool. Always get a game with cool card deduction.
Yeah, well, we're going to go from cool card deduction to super sleuthing and spies with Audrey. You're going to talk to us about The Loop, I believe, from Maxime Rambourg and Theo Riviere. So take it away.
Yeah, I haven't seen many discussions about this game on the in the French community. That game seems to have made a strong impression, but I think it's made by French designers, so that might be not a surprise. So that's The Loop is a game where you have to defend the world. Again, it's fou. You play a temporal agent, a bit like MIB, but for time and not for Alien. So a few of the agents have their style that makes me think of MIB. And you will navigate through time to prevent Dr. Faux from breaking, basically. So the idea is that the Dr. Faux is sending clones of himself at different periods of time. So there are 7 periods of time in total. And then he uses the clones to build temporal instability at each period of time, and if there will be a time vortex there. If the Dr. Foe manages to create enough vortexes, it's game over for the players. If the Dr. Foe has to create a vortex somewhere where there was already a vortex, the players lose. So it's a cooperative game where the players have to prevent the Dr. Foe. How do you do it? There will be at any time free missions disponible. Free missions available. The free missions are something like destroy a clone. Free missions available. The free missions are something like destroy a clone, make a loop. I'll get back to that later. Be two players around the time machine of the Doctor Loop. The time machine is in the middle of the board, and honestly, I think it's a very fun piece of design of the board. And honestly, I think it's a very fun piece of design. So you have a machine with three slopes that come out of it at different angles, and things like that. So you will do the missions, and you have to achieve 4 missions to win the game. And several losing conditions. So it's not really an easy game, and you may lose the first game, but that's okay. And so you will move through the different periods of time to punch the clones. You have to move them around the board to send them to a special period of time to kill them. If he gets there, he dies instantly. It's the paradox. It's the temporal paradox. And you can also remove the temporal instability from the time periods and make a loop. So the loop is that to do these actions that I just mentioned, you have cards, 3 cards, and the cards have symbols on them. There are 4 different symbols, the 4th one being actually no symbol. And a loop is to consume energy that's been added to the time period by you or by another player at some point. And when you loop, you consume that period by you or by another player at some point. And when you loop, you consume that energy and you renew your cards. So you can act again. So let's say I have 3 different cards. I'm going to say something very simple. 2 of them have the same symbol, one has a different symbol. I will play I have 3 different cards. I'm going to say something very simple. 2 of them have the same symbol, one has a different symbol. I will play my first card to move a zone. I will play my second card to add an energy to that zone, and I will play my third card with a different symbol to let's say to erase one instability from that zone, and then I will consume the energy that I just added there to loop and renew my cards with the 2 same symbols, so I will be able again to move one zone and to add 1 energy. Each loop costs 1 energy more to do, so it by spreading energy everywhere to make things available, and many energy at some places. There are 5 different characters available, and each one has a specialty. Some of them will prevent instability from being added to the game. Some will increase movement for them. Some of them are specialized in clone destruction. And at the end of each player turn, you will be on 1 time period, and attached to this time period there might be cards, and you will take this card and add it to the top of your deck for next turn. So there is an element of deck. I think it's very fun because you have to control which card you get by where you end on the map, on the board, and I think that's something quite funny, because you really have the choice, but then maybe that choice will be changed due to, for instance. So yeah, I think you have lots of things to take into account in this game, and it's less simple than it might seem.
Yeah, actually, I have a question.
Yes.
I think that you understand that this compares a lot with regular from the rules, but I didn't play it, so it's actually a genuine question here. I think that the cool part is that since the clones do splash damage in other timelines, other epochs, you cannot exactly predict where damage trying to minimize consequences everywhere. Does this work? Is it fun?
Yeah, exactly. The time machine has three slopes that will send the instability cubes to three different times. And it depends on the number of clones that are at the time. So yeah, of course, if you put four cubes in the machine, because there are, it's always two cubes plus two plus one per clone on the time that's facing the machine. So if you have two clones facing, you will put four cubes in the machine, and yes, the four cubes might facing the machine. So if you have two clones facing, you will put four cubes in the machine, and yes, the four cubes might drop at the same period of time, which will create a vortex instantly. Yes, it can happen. So that's why that's a bit why the game isn't as easy. So that's a bit why the game isn't as easy as it might seem, because the clones uh, are random. So each clone has a backside which shows one a period of time and a front side that shows another period of time. So you place them on the backside corresponding period of time, and you have to, yeah, how many cubes do you put in the machine and where do they fall? The thing is that when the turns you play at maximum 21 turns. 7 turns, because it's one for each period of time at the first how do you lose. And there are 7 cards for each time that you will lose on each step. When you get to 2 cards remaining, you know that these 2 periods are likely to be drawn next turn. It's going to be one of these, and so you can plan a bit ahead and say, oh, next turn it's going to be the machine is going to be facing a bit ahead and say, oh, next turn it's going to be the machine is going to be facing the let's say modern time and the Renaissance. So yeah, we have to get to one of these and clean it up, or maybe the 2 if we can.
You know, before pandemic legacy hit, I would have considered this an annoyance. Legacy hit, I would have considered this an annoyance. But after playing a lot of the legacy games, where you basically end up getting the same location over and over again, I think this could be refreshing and at the moment funnier.
Yeah, you can plan the random.
And at the moment funnier.
Yeah, you can plan the randomness.
Yeah, from when we played together, the fact that the dice tower at the center, that is the time machine, always has a specific randomness. Like it's always going to be a specific time. Always plan around that, and it adds that little bit of push your luck mechanic sometimes, where you can be like, we can only protect 2 zones, so we have to decide which one we are going to protect, or we can walk towards a mission and just hope that it doesn't land on the one zone that we can't protect at the moment. Like you know that each zone has like a 30% chance of being hit by the time machine, so you can always sort of decide if you prioritize it or not. It's pretty fun. I thought, because it is random, but you can predict it in some ways.
Yeah, that's actually what it looks to be fun. So I wanted just confirmation, because games like this with a push your luck element all need to be fun, because you will end up repeating stuff, because you won't know, because there's a bit of randomness. You won't know what will happen next, and so as long as it doesn't feel like a chore, you are doing it right. It's fun, it's cool, and it looks like that. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the bonus. Well, one.
It's fun, it's cool, and it looks like that. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the bonus. Well, one of the things which for me are a bonus is that the game has lots of difficulty levels actually. Because the first thing is that, yeah, you have difficulty levels as how many clones are on the board at the beginning of the game. So clones, it gets a bit harder, and there are guides in the rulebook to tune that. You also have two other game modes which I haven't tried yet. So you have one with the super clones and one other with extra kind of time machines, but they're not exactly they don't behave the same way. Game, you have like tons of achievements to read and you can tick them, and they are super fun. Like there is different things. So one is basically win at each different game mode and each different game difficulty. There is one other as for the end of the first step, win before the end of the second step, etc., etc. Win at the last card of the last step, etc., etc. And there are everything is presented as resume because yeah, you're agent, so it's professional. And there are like something like one player is in advance at the gaming session of half an hour or more, listening to the soundtrack of Back to the Future. Uh, one player is wearing a bow tie, play in 2040, etc. Or have players turn a bow tie, play in 2040. Etc., or have players turn late to the gaming event, etc., etc. I think that's very funny because you can also track what you did.
Yeah, I gotta say, I absolutely adore the aesthetic of this
I
game.
think that's very funny because you can also track what you did.
Yeah, I gotta say, I absolutely adore the aesthetic of this game. The Saturday morning cartoon kind of thing. It's just beautiful, and I like the characters you play with their specially shaped. Reminds me a bit of Tim Fowler's stuff, like Burgle Bros. He does a lot of spy-fi. Do you get stickers to stick on those little wooden meeples, or do they remain plain with the fun shapes that they have?
Not in the game.
Oh, that's a bit of a shame. I was looking at the character cards and I was like, I really like them. Apart from V-Girl being is because from what I've looked at, this game hasn't made it to Sweden yet, and it hasn't made it to the UK either at the few UK stores I know that I've checked. So that might be part of it. Definitely feels like more people should be talking about it. The English edition came out last year from Pandasaurus Games and reached the wide market that it will do eventually. Yeah,
The
yeah.
authors are Maxime Rambourg, Théo Rivière. I mean, I think they're French. Or maybe Canadian, but that explains why the French market has the game already. And the illustrator, as long as I'm here, is Simon Caruso, and I has the game already. And the illustrator, as long as I'm here, is Simon Caruso, and I think yeah.
Yeah. By the looks of it, one of them lives in Nancy in France.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
we
They're
say
French.
both depends on the people.
Yeah, it depends on the people. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, it depends on the people. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, a little bit like unlike Worcester. Yeah. Okay, no, that's good. Oh my goodness, yes, yes. Maxime did the Big Book of Madness, which I have and I love. I love the Big Book of Madness.
Yeah, as a summary, I think that the Loop is a good game. It's not a very expensive game. You still have to fish a bit more than 30 euros. It's I think 45-ish. But you have a big replayability potential in there, especially with the different game modes.
Comes out because that designer with Pandasaurus and this particular theme is like, yes, please. And I do love my cooperative games. So I think we can go from fiddling with history onto mythological history with uh, Alexis. You're going to be talking about Tainted Grail, which made me laugh. That they describe it as a blend of Arthurian legends and Celtic mythology. Arthurian legends are Celtic mythology, but this is a fascinating game that I'm sure most people have heard of.
Yes, please
So
explain it to me.
Very strong love
Well,
there. Very strong love
well,
there.
Arthurian legends are in a lot of ways inspired by French mythology since they've been like
yeah,
rewritten dozens of times, and that the The most
Yeah,
popular version of it right now has been published by a French author in
certainly,
the 18th
certainly.
century.
I don't want to get into it here. It's just that Arthur was a Celt, specifically Welsh.
That legend has been kind of
It has.
appropriated by the French.
It's like Stonehenge.
Arthur, Cuillère. That was the Camelot instant. Sorry,
Yeah,
French.
on changing everything. So and it's a bit like Seventh Continent, isn't it?
Yeah, so Tainted Grail, as Sven pointed out, takes place in a world inspired by Arthurian legends. Most of the familiar mythical ideas are still present, but moved around and lit through a darker plot. 100 years after Arthur and his knights conquered Avalon, a long time ago, Merlin and the Druid erected menhir to keep the weird magic of the Isle at bay and allow the settlers to create their villages and tribes. Now the magic is running out, the end of the world is coming Isle at bay, and allow the settlers to create their villages and tribes. Now the magic is running out, the end of the world is coming close, and the knights of the Round Table are disappearing. The players are originating from a village that decided to try and find a way to restore the manners. Is coming close, and the knights of the Round Table are disappearing. The players are originating from a village that decided to try and find a way to restore the manners. For that, they need to send out their best out, and all of them died. So the players are part of the B team, since afterwards, toughness of body or character is an important part of the story as it unfolds. I really like the idea that you play as the not so heroic team. Um, it really reinforced that idea that the age of heroes and myth is coming to an end on Avalon, and that bit by bit as you explore, your action on some location might affect other, forcing you to swap out their cards. And when you explore location, you have a choose your own adventure book that tells you what happened on that specific location. The game is really at its best with the narrative bits and the mechanical. Certain cards and ability are shuffled around in ways that gives a tangible weight to the change that you bring to the world. There's a survival element to the game that at its best gives a bit of pressure to select the right option and force you to leave stone unturned for a second playthrough. Unfortunately, most of the time it feels like an excuse to halt the game and grind out the ways to regenerate the few resources that you need to go forward. Uh,
Yeah, I
yeah,
I just want to agree with that because I gotta say, if you're gonna do a game and you want to make it about survival, make it about survival, but don't put survival in your story games. Um,
Yeah, it has the same flow as Seven Continent.
mm,
We
yeah.
and I, with my boyfriend, we house ruled both those games to lessen uh, the the grind elements.
A lot of people did that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Thankfully, those upkeep mechanics are usually easier to handle with house rules as they are very mechanical and often self-contained. But given that the game offers a fantastical worlds, I would have hoped that they could have opted for some more interesting take on death and failure. Dying could have been a sort of mythical transformation or playing something with the resurrection or a narrative step in the game rather than simply roll back to the start of the chapter, which always feels both clunky and less interesting than any other option that it could have gone through. The game has a lot of really interesting gameplay solution to narratives think. Like the way that you progress to a chapter is that you have like a deck of cards that will contain different mission and different timed events, and every in-game turn you're going to turn another card, which will sometimes reveal a random event, sometimes reveal a story one. There's a lot of little ways that they manage to get that sense of time passing and missions and stories and quests that works nicely. And one of the other big elements of the game is the combat system, which is extremely innovative, I feel. I know that it. Basically, every enemy in the game has a specific set of action, like a sort of set AI, while the player has a deck of cards that they can play in a sequence, matching symbols to trigger different actions. The point of the combat is to create a sequence that will do enough damage to the enemy to win the battle, basically.
Yeah. I think for me, the combat I'd have engaged with it a lot better without some of the other trappings of the game. Um, I haven't played the physical copy, but first of all, it set me on a bit of like I wasn't particularly happy with the characters that you play as. In particular, I'm like, well, why is it the female characters? In particular, I'm like, well, why is it the female characters that come in the main game? There's a lot of skin, and I was like, well, this isn't, that I tried
Oh,
to put
come
that to one
on.
side. No, I'm sorry, but it's just like it's. I know I paint Kingdom Death. It's just like it's. I know I paint Kingdom Death pinups and stuff, but actually my favorite Kingdom Death pinups is now that they're doing the male ones as well. It
No,
was,
no.
Yes, yes,
it's
yes.
yeah,
I
it's
understand that.
yeah. So I wasn't. I wasn't gonna hold it against them at that. But that was just like a first, like, oh, that's it could have been better, but I'll look past it. It's the survival, and then the constant like, oh, there might be something if you come back here, sort of like thing. Those two elements together, I just it dragged down the good parts, and the combat for me, I enjoyed it in a game which just didn't have this bog of constant survivaling. If I'd been willing to house rule that out and just do the exploring and the amazing story stuff and everything, I think it might have flowed better for me.
Uh,
So
uh,
mechanically, I do think the combat is clever.
The
actu-
house rule that we did. Oops, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, 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 no. I wanted just to say that the combat is actually real cool, and that's very cool mechanics. The only problem with combat is that at the start you run away a lot, and you begin building. Uh, satisfying. That's exceptionally satisfying.
The house rule that we did with my boyfriend is that when we light a minion, instead of it being up for 7 turns minus 1 per player, which for us would be 5 turns, we decided to always light a minion at its maximum time, which is 8 turns.
I could see that being a lot less frustrating.
We also fucked up some rules. We messed up with some because we didn't read properly the book, or we forgot about them because we started playing and then we had a long pause, and when we got back we forgot about some rules. So there's also this. So we made things a bit easier on us because we forgot that for combat and diplomacy we had to alternate between the players. Basically, at 2 players it's alternate, more or less, because you have to have the 2 players that act before anyone can act again, and we forgot about that. So my boyfriend, which got AR, has a much better deck of combat, and where I choose RF, which is basically the farmer, so I have less efficient combat deck. So he was playing a lot, and at some point we said, oh no, we have to actually activate both of us before we can do something again. Oh, and that was the last session, and we are so but I think that's not really a problem in itself because we are much more interested in the narrative idea, and we know that we will play another game because we want to explore the choices that we didn't do for now. I'm not going to spoil too much, but you can make them fall, and we decided to help them, and so that led us to some choices, and we know that the next time we probably will make them fall. Just to see, because we are very curious about it and we want to see how things work. And I think that's part of the things work. And I think that's part of the thing, Fan, that you said when you mentioned that, yeah, you come to a place, you read the booklet, and it says, oh, if you are playing chapter 10, go to entry 7. And that's a bit frustrating because you say, oh, I can't do that yet. But or you have to say, oh, I have to open 10, go to entry 7. And that's a bit frustrating because you say, oh, I can't do that yet. But or you have to say, oh, I have to open my notebook and write that, hey, let's come back to this place when we are playing chapter 10. And that's a bit frustrating. Honestly, that's, yeah, because either you end up with tons of bookkeeping, or you end up with, oh, I'm going to miss on so many things. So yeah, but then with the replayability, I think that's not too much of an issue because you have different branching paths to explore. So
Yeah, I gotta say, all like Tainted Grail played it a little bit, play it a bit and get frustrated. However, the reason the game exists is the reason that I backed ISS Vanguard. Um,
Yeah.
because and that so I am excited about an Awaken Realms project, and I'm getting in English, so it's gonna arrive early.
Yeah, I will get ISS Vanguard in English because I can't wait.
we picked Tainted Grail in French because it's more convenient for my boyfriend when he has to read in French, and for myself having a book in English and having to say things out loud in French is sometimes difficult, honestly, because you have to read the full you have to change the orders of things when you change
Yeah.
languages, or if you read as you read, it gets problematic. So I'm waiting on the second wave because I picked two-wave delivery. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. So I've had the core game for a while now, and I'm waiting for the second wave. And I know as well that we are waiting. First, we have to finish the first campaign. Yes, but then we are waiting on the second wave to start the second one anyway, because we want to use the Echoes of the Past, I think it's called, expansion, where you have to do some achievements for characters and you will unlock other story elements. And yeah, as we focus on the narrative we want.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Echoes of the Past expansion is a nice little bit of a narrative addition where if you fulfill certain condition with your character, so for example, you need to visit location X and have a dream with one of the character, for example. If you do that, then you get to read a specific lore entry and you get a little power up for that character. Sometimes it's temporary, sometimes it's permanent. I think that it adds a lot to the game, and I would recommend that to the game, and I would recommend that that expansion. I don't know yet about the two bigger ones because I've yet to play them. I do have them because I got the English two-wave shipping, I think. And yeah,
Yeah, I,
with shipping, I think. And yeah,
yeah, I think that these two expansions, if you are a player that, like me, focuses on the narrative elements, you have to maybe you will have to use different house rules. Maybe you will have to use different house rules if you do use house rules in the Fall of Avalon campaign, because the menhirs, for instance, are not the same mechanics, or are just not there in these other expansions. So things are a bit different, and that's also something that I really like in the core game. Not going to spoil too much because that's about chapters 8 and forward, but things that you could take for granted at some points will change, and you will have to say, oh, now I have to think differently about how I move, where I go, etc. And it keeps us on our toes.
yeah. There's a lot of branching narrative in the game. In the main campaign, I'm going to say that it's quote unquote not that much. You will often have a couple of clearly labeled choice on how to go forward, and if you have to have a third or a fourth choice, there will usually be more like roundabout ways to go back to those first couple of choices. You're not going to have dozens of different paths, but in the end of the game, there's certainly a few endings that you can reach, a few different endings that you can reach because of the culmination of those different paths. But on the map itself, in certain location, you're going to have smaller mini quests, and if you do them or not, later on during other chapters, those location might actually change. So, for example, in the game, but you might find a village that has a problem, and if you help them later on, there'll be like a better a traveling hub. So when you go there, they actually will have resources to exchange with you or something. But if you don't help them when you come back later, it's going to be like that sort of stuff happens a lot, and I think that's where the game is at its strongest when you have decision that you took early on that have an effect later in the game, and that effect is not uh, just it's not just going to block a narrative from its encampment, and there's going to be like a brigand encounter and maybe some quests, and it, they usually manage to make it that even in failure there's some progression, which makes the survival mechanics even more of a shame because they didn't do that there.
Yeah, kind of fail forward, don't write. Kind of fail forward, don't write. Yeah. No, no, I just wanted to stress a thing that you already said, which is the narrative is real, real good. This game has issues, and some are really frustrating because keeping collecting resources is actually a big flaw of Seven Continents. And some are really frustrating because keeping collecting resources is actually a big flaw of Seven Continent too. And in Seven Continent, you are even more on a clock. Now, I am still waiting to play, and I think in 2021 I won't play Tainted Grail, so a fair share of it. And I have to say that the narrative is very, very good. It makes you forget that there are mechanical issues with the game because you want to play just that bit more to unlock progress in the story, and we are so interlocked. They are so cool because basically, like you said, you were using the B team, but it is even less than B team. In Tainted Grail, the heroes have already failed, and you are the flawed one who returned. I think I have now problems with connecting names to characters, but I remember Niam or Nayam
Yeah.
or whatever
The
she's
character
called.
that comes without a board and that scandalized so much the communities. Where is
She
Niam board? That's amazing.
Yeah, she's the coolest character there, and that's why that's why I was telling.
That's amazing.
Yeah, she's the coolest character there, and that's why that's why I was telling Fan. Yes, there's some skin, and that is a shame because characters are so good, even if there too much skin shown in some cases.
Yeah,
Uh,
it's it's just
even if there too much skin shown in some cases.
yeah,
Uh,
it's just leaning into that stereotypical trope of, oh, the Celtic lady, oh, not much in the way of clothing going on, which is like actually complete nonsense.
yeah.
And that's a problem. It can undermine a very strong character.
Has done often because for some of the character, instead of having their artists specifically design them according to their lore and everything, they put those characters' design up to the Kickstarter's backer to decide. And well, crowd being what they are, that are picked, unfortunately.
Wee woo, male gaze. Here we
Yeah,
go. Yeah, but it happens. I'm just glad that like we're moving forward away from that in the case of a lot of things. Which is actually part of why the next game we're talking about is what it is. But it's Krzysztof Piskorski, a Polish writer who does the writing behind this. He's doing the writing on ISS Vanguard, and that has me really excited. And also the ISS Vanguard miniatures, man, they're all dressed in like exosuits. They
that's
look
good.
like they're tooled for the job. It's it's I'm really hopeful that they take his writing and just get it right, because they've been so close to Tainted Grail for me. They've been so close with Etherfields, but they've never quite got there. It's always sort of been a game that's had this moment where I've just been like, I can see what's going to keep on happening here, and this just feels like,
We definitely need to talk about Nemesis at some point,
oh, Nemesis on
because
the other
Oh
hand.
yes,
yeah,
core game, please.
Nemesis, yeah, that's definitely something to talk about. That's just a surefire hit. I've got some of the promo cards I mentioned at the opener were for Nemesis, crawl spacing, special character feats, and I think special objectives or something. That's I really like Nemesis. I picked it up after the Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
Tainted Grail is the only Awakened Realms that I have and that I'm waiting on for now. Mostly because the other themes don't talk to me much. But if they get back to something fantasy later, I probably will there, especially if it keeps being narrative.
Yeah, I think I got Nemesis like 7 months ago. I backed it in Kickstarter, but still single wave language edition. So,
Again!
um
There's a lesson to learn there.
and yeah, I like Nemesis.
yeah, that's something that I can say is that I really like Awaken Realms. They're not always perfect. Their game always have little flaws here and there, but I think that they're always on a very good path to get a great
Mm.
game out,
Yeah,
and
They keep
usually, yeah,
they keep improving.
yeah, they keep
Yeah.
improving and ironing out the problems.
Mm.
Uh,
Also, really good inserts.
yeah, that's
yeah,
that too.
The,
They
yeah.
do a good
Yeah,
job.
except it doesn't accommodate sleeved cards on Tinder. I will show that when I will do an
Nemesis
unboxing
does.
Oh,
video. I will just take what's inside the box right now because there are just
Yeah.
cards outside. So many
As
cards.
say, Nemesis has extra space for sleeved cards. Specifically says for sleeved cards on it. So I guess maybe they messed up.
That's unfair.
Yeah.
yeah.
Before we move on, I'd like to point out one little thing that they did with Tainted Grail that was very strange but turned out to be pretty good, is that they decided to make a video game at the same time that they pushed out Tainted Grail. And they didn't went for an adaptation of the board game, they went for keeping the theme and the characters, but doing a different story and a different gameplay. And it was a very strange decision, but from what I've played of it so far, it's actually really good. I think that Fen, you played it?
Yeah, I
I
played
played
it.
it.
It
I
did grab
should
me.
Yeah.
play it.
Didn't
I
grab you?
No, it's just sort of I played it for a while and then meant to go back to it, and well, unfortunately, other games came along that have just kept me busy since.
Yeah.
So
It made me
Yeah.
think a lot of Darkest Dungeon.
Well, I don't think a lot of Darkest Dungeon actually, but it's true that the game pushes you forward. So it is a good story. It is a good story. I got the male protagonist, the one which was basically the blacksmith apprentice.
Bill, I think.
Yeah, yeah, should be same bear from the game, and yes, it was a cool narrative. Then it's like Fan said, that there are more games, and you end up,
yeah,
if you don't finish it quick, you
I
don't finish it.
I've just checked what happened, and Disco Elysium went on sale sometime while I was
Ah,
playing it,
uh,
and good luck anything ever made being better than Disco Elysium, which is one of the finest games I've ever had the pleasure of playing.
yeah, it's not exactly a fair comparison.
They've just done they've just done the big updated full ultimate whatever edition for Disco Elysium, and I'm just trying to finish other things before I go back to playing that because I'll be gone for a week when it happens. It was a fantastic game. Speaking of fantastic games, it's time for us to go on to another like heavy narrative cooperative experience with my emergency topic because unfortunately David couldn't be with us today. He's recovering. He'll be back in the next episode with a lovely game to talk about. But I've that is Dead of Winter from Jonathan Gilmour and Isaac Vega. Now, before I go into the game, I actually want to briefly just talk about Isaac Vega, who is I'm not sure if you guys are completely aware, but he's like one of the big sort of important voices within within um, within board games because he's a gay man, gay I should just say, and he's baked into a desire to promote LGBTQ plus representation in gaming, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And Dead of Winter was one of the first games that did this. It has homosexual encounters depicted within the first game, and the Long Night, the expansion, actually has one of board game's first openly trans characters in Hugo Valentine, which is like fantastic. He's this has been an important thing to him. He's also the guy behind Ashes: Rise of the Phoenix Born, which is a wonderful living card game that if you've not played, it marries dice and card gameplay together in a fantastic way. And both of these games also have artwork from Fernanda Suarez, which is she's just superb at characterization, and bringing everything together. I'm gonna gush about the characters in Dead of Winter. So I just wanted to put it out there and just say this game is designed by somebody who had a goal of increasing representation in the board game industry with Dead of Winter, nailed it, and had some fantastic support from other designers, from Plaid Hat, and from artists to get this
That's always great
together.
to hear.
It is. It absolutely is. So, Dead of Winter it's now a 1 to 11 player game, although typically it's 1 to 5 players or 2 to 5 players, that can be played cooperatively or can be played semi-cooperatively, but not necessarily have a betrayer at all times. It follows the usual format of that was set by Pandemic of there's a crisis going on, you have to try and resolve and deal with the crisis. But also you have to deal with the pressure of zombies piling up outside, and also the really you could just be trying to hoard food or medicine or guns. You could be trying to burn down the entire place, or maybe even just have some people die. Who knows? It's all sort of. I like that so much because it obfuscates if there is a betrayer, because people are constantly doing stuff that's a ling. Um, the game has a dice-based action mechanic. You roll dice at the start of the turn, and you're able to perform actions as long as you've got a result equal to or higher than the requirement. Each character themselves they have search and fighting set as their traits, plus a kind of ranking of how important they are. And for me, the characters are really what brings the game together. A good zombie story is never about the zombies. The zombies are just the pressure that forces everyone to come together. The good story is about what people do and how they react and how they interact. And Dead of Winter does that through these characters who you just get a standee and a card to start with, and they immediately speak to you. Whether it's um, a parapsychologist or a janitor or an ex-soldier or a mayor, or perhaps a mall Santa that absolutely everybody hates because he's a terrible drunk, or everybody's favorite, the stunt dog. There's just these characters that leap off the page, and it's all like thanks to the artwork, which is just gorgeous. Like I think this game looks better than well painted miniature games, and they're just standees. I really do. Um, the other wrinkle to all of this is the mechanic that Plaid Hat was selling as being the big thing, which is the crossroads mechanic. What it is a deck of cards that the person sitting next to you will draw one during your turn and look to see if you achieve the trigger event on it, and then something narrative might happen. You might find a new survivor, you might discover some new supplies, or somebody might be doing something a bit off or weird, and this has given them a lot of great ways of introducing more story. They've embraced how these games work. I'm sure you've all played like Arkham Horror or some other cooperative game with a lot of narrative built into it, and suddenly something unbelievably weirdly stupid has happened that like just takes you out of the game for a moment. You're like, suddenly your character falls over an apple and down a hole in a grating and dies. It's like, what's that got to do with what's going on? And instead, Dead of Winter's grabbed this and gone, hey, we're gonna embrace this, and Belton goes, oops, do you mind if I join you? And you go, sure, why not? Um, but it's fantastic, really great. This game comes in there's three main boxes. There is Dead of Winter Crossroads game, which was the first one that was released, and that was back in 20. And it did have a big change. It's had an impact on the texture of games for years afterwards. It was then followed up with The Long Night, which built on the original Crossroads, so much so that I'm going to say if you're going to get one, The Long Night is definitely the better choice because it adds in base build, it adds in a lot of extra variance into what the locations you're searching for supplies will have. And it also gives you a few additional scenarios dealing with bandits and super zombies like the Left 4 Dead ones. It might not be to everyone's taste, but you can play around with the different scenarios and fix things together to get what you want. I personally prefer the characters from the first Crossroads game. They're the ones I'm most familiar with, but the second one has some great characters in it as well, like Hugo Valentine, who I mentioned before, but also there's Blue, the super sentient, like super intelligent monkey from experiments. It's I just love this game so much. I really do. Keep forgetting about it, putting it on the shelf, not playing it for a while, and then coming back to it and just being like, oh yeah, this game just gives you stories. It just comes to life. Um, so, has had any experience with Dead of Winter?
Yes, once.
Hmm.
Yeah, honestly, it was just once. It was like 3.5 years ago. I was barely arrived in Italy. I was still learning the language, and I had discovered that at a board game cafe there was a group of people meeting semi-regularly on, I don't remember, Friday evenings or Sunday evenings. Or, I don't remember, but that's not important. And I talked with them, and we said, "Oh yeah, let's meet that day." And we went with my boyfriend as well because he followed me in Italy. And so we went, we met the people. I was trying to speak a bit, and they were like, wow, your Italian is already so. Because he followed me in Italy. And so we went, we met the people. I was trying to speak a bit, and they were like, wow, your Italian is already so good compared to our French. Well, I've been living here for 6 months now, no choice. And yeah, and so we started playing, and at some point, well, I've been living here for 6 months now, no choice. And yeah, and so we started playing, and at some point I had to draw an event, and it was something like struggling in the library about I don't remember exactly what, but the card was heavy with text, and I was reading the text, and I had no idea. That's a bit stupid, but that was fun. Except these event cards, I understood pretty fast the game because it's not complicated,
No, it's really
and
not.
and that's something interesting because yeah, you have the events that are a bit text heavy, but the rest of the game is really okay.
Yeah, well, if you play it as a solo game, because it doesn't really work. It works when you play two player, but as a solo game exercise, it is still very interesting given the weight of the mechanics and the fact that they're not too heavy to operate, even though there's a lot going on. You can get a clear idea of what your objectives of scenario are, what your objectives on the given turn are. Lose it just all kind of grabs you really well.
I've only played it, I think 2 or 3 times when I was in a collocation a few years back when my roommates had the game. Um, I remember it being a few years back when my roommates had the game. Um, I remember it being a very interesting how would I say, a very interesting vehicle for social deduction and very interesting vehicle for social deduction and social interaction games mechanics.
Yeah.
Like a werewolf, but a lot more involved and interesting. I had a lot of fun with it, but I never really, got into the game more than that.
And people do have fond memories of playing it and then have trouble getting back to playing it again because uh, it is a heck of a chore to set up. Like,
Yeah, that's possibly the case. I played it, I think, a couple of times, but it looks like ages ago. I would 5 years because I keep track of the last 5 years pretty decently. So it was a lot of time ago. My little brother has it, so I played it with his friends. It actually took a bit to set up, but not to explain. I remember that. I remember that the game was pretty simple. The Crossroads version, the first one. I remember it being pretty simple, and I remember it that, and I hope that I'm using the right terms because I played it in Italian. We never went for colony goal. Basically, everyone was doing colony goal. Basically, everyone was doing their selfish goal, and we never managed to win a game. So
yeah, that it's a hard thing to balance. Speaking of which, I really like the mechanic they've included in the game where every resource you collect identifies on it where it's come from. Because when you have your like individual crisis goal for the turn, players have to get whatever, say, get like 5 cans of food or something to succeed, and those cards are put in face down secretly. Nobody knows who's contributed what. But when they're shuffled in face down secretly, nobody knows who's contributed what. But when they're shuffled and revealed, they print the locations on them. And there's a wonderful bit of evidence and tracking you can keep an eye on, because if you know where people have been and bad items get put in, you might have a chance of spotting who did it, which is a neat way of getting towards finding out who a potential betrayer is. But also, they could have just stuck stuff in because they're lying about the fact that they want to keep 5 cans of food in their inventory and they were trying to look helpful, and thinking everyone would get enough in otherwise. So it's a just neat little things like that, decisions made. I've played it a fair bit more than you guys, and I've actually have played with the second expansion that was released, and this is called Warring Colonies, and it's a small box expansion. If you're just playing with the typical group, it adds some more characters and some more crossroad events, including, and there's some in Long Night, some that have a trigger. There's a bit of a story there. Um, so Warring Colonies basically lets you take Crossroads and a Long Night and put both colonies on the table, and people play members of one of the two colonies that are in conflict within the same area and competing over resources, and there can only be one winning colony, or maybe both colonies, but probably not. And you could even have, if you have an odd number of players, a lone wolf player who's just their group of survivors is on their own and has their own objective. It's amazing. It's really hard to get enough people. You can start at 4 to 5 players to play Warring Colonies, but it doesn't come to life until you're about a number of 7 or 9, and then it's a kind of all-day event. Really, a lot of sort of social chatting and back and forth, and lines drawn in the sand, and people switching loyalties and trying to, cooperate when the situation requires it. It's impressive as heck. It's impressive as heck.
Twilight Imperium without the war crimes, but with the felonies.
Team Warcry, yeah, Team Twilight Imperium, if you like, yeah. Yeah, with sometimes one person just wandering around throwing a spanner in all the works and proclaiming themselves to be the Bandit King. Yeah, but one person just wandering around throwing a spanner in all the works and proclaiming themselves to be the Bandit King. Yeah, but yeah, I wanted to get back to one of the other things, and it was the crossroad cards, and as I mentioned, the trigger warning ones. So this is anyway the setting, the genre, zombie movie ones. So this is anyway the setting, the genre. Zombie movies can be quite dark anyway. It's often very bleak. The Walking Dead, a lot of terrible things happen in that. It's always been a tradition of it to show the best and the worst of humanity under stressful situations. Uh, situations. Uh, the Long Night and I think Warring Colonies come with an envelope which literally has a trigger warning printed on it that says you might not want to play with these cards. These ones deal with very dark subjects, and I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Like, fine. I'm not bothered. And I opened the packet up to take a look and flick through. And you know what? one of the cards I read was about you running into a member of your colony who is doing something with a zombie that um, is, like, you know what? You know what,
You may
Plaid
not
Hat?
want to play with that.
Yeah, you know what, Plaid Hat? And I'm okay with games dealing with these kind of subjects because board games are art and you should plumb into them. I'm fine with this existence, but you weren't kidding when you said trigger warning. Like, yes, wow, wow. I'm impressed that they went there with that. And also, it's tough because you're playing a game and you're in a situation where you look at the consequences and you might be like, I know ethically what's the right thing here. This needs to stop. This needs to be dealt with. This person, this can't happen. No, no, no. This is awful. And then you look at the results and you might be like, oh God, we might have to look the other way on this because otherwise the colony will collapse. And just putting you for a moment in that dilemma and that decision is really challenging. Like, I haven't had that exact event come up during a game, but we've had other ones from the trigger packs turn up that have had us all going, well, we know what we want to do, but can we actually do the right thing here? Because it's gonna set us back severely. Are we gonna have to look the other way on this? It's something like the King's Dilemma touches on a bit with like the very opening thing touches into slavery. A big spoiler to say one of the first decisions is about slavery, and then there's a one a bit further down the way that you consider whether you might burn some things because of something someone's done to vaguely get at it, might remove some precious materials from a man, shall we say?
Yeah, that
Mm.
my boyfriend was pressing for one article, and he
Mm.
was like, "Yeah, no, we have to do it," and we voted against that, and we had bad
Yeah.
consequences, and since then he's been, "I
Told
told
you.
you we should have done
Yeah.
that."
I do like it when a game challenges you within the framework to consider a hard, tough situation and actually do question yourself and think about it. So yeah, King's Dilemma. I think the slavery one in the King's Dilemma right at the start. There's such low stakes at that point that I'd be surprised if many groups are like,
Th-
"Oh, slavery's fine," because
there,
slavery's
there,
not
there's
fine.
also there's also a slavery decision
Mm.
next to the end anyway.
Yeah, that's another thing that I did stop for a moment and I was like, you know what? It's not often a board game really makes me sit and think about this and then be like, you got me. You got me.
Yeah.
Well done. Well done. And
Yeah,
yeah.
and putting that behind a spoiler
Mm.
tag is just perfect.
Yeah.
Imagine being the game editor who decided, well, maybe we should put a trigger warning on these cards.
I give him or her a 10 award.
Mm.
The unsung heroes of this hobby.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very adult, sensible, smart decision to include them, and another one to put them to one side, away from the main pool, and say, you make your decision about whether you're okay with these being in the game or not. Because that's something else I find a lot of people have trouble with. Is something about playing with house rules can make you feel like you're not really playing the game. You're kind of this is a nice release for people. So yeah. Um, I I want to go back and just set up Dead of Winter and play it again some more now. Like even as a solo game, I really enjoy how it comes to life. I enjoy the character stories and everything. It's fantastic. I will briefly now. There was a follow up to the Crossroads game, Gen 7. I haven't had a chance to play it. It seems to have not been as well regarded. I think maybe the change in designer because there's a Isaac Vega isn't involved in Gen 7 and I play it. It seems to have not been as well regarded. I think maybe the change in designer because there's a Isaac Vega isn't involved in Gen 7 and I genuinely think it's Isaac Vega's presence that makes such a difference because we have since had I gotta get the name right. Involved in Gen 7, and I genuinely think it's Isaac Vega's presence that makes such a difference because we have since had. I gotta get the name right. It's the pirate game that came out last year, Forgotten Waters, which people have just really loved, and I want, for me at least, if I see a game from Isaac Vega, I'm going to be going ahead very much like, I got to pay attention to this because his work has been phenomenal ever since he burst onto the scene and then really cemented himself with Dead of Winter. So big recommendation from me. Fantastic social deduction game. Good as a pure colonies if you've got a whole day to spare on it. And a interesting solo puzzle because you play the hard versions of the scenarios. So it more or less covers everything. I will just say, as I mentioned before, The Long Night is the one you should buy. And the other two are only if you are just a huge. So that's Dead of Winter.
I have to say this, a game for all seasons.
Except it's constantly set in winter. I would, which I would love. I would have loved to see another season. But yeah, the winter includes the frostbite mechanic, which no, that makes traveling like super scary. I didn't even talk in the main bit about that dice, that awful exposure dice you have to roll whenever you move anywhere that tempts you to burn fuel. Yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Okay, so we done?
Yeah,
We
very
we probably done.
Yeah.
very fun game. I would recommend for the little that I've played it.
Yeah, yeah. I think it might be something worth going back to sort out with some online play. Let's right. Okay, so shall I wrap up?
Yeah. And it's time also to say that we have a new Patreon. Did we mention that? So hello, Garrett.
Hello, Garrett.
Welcome to the
Welcome.
Cool Kids Club.
Yeah, thank you for your support. This will allow us to back one more Kickstarter this year, possibly.
Looking to one more game. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, because the objective is to get the last Standee to 2022.
Yes.
Actually, the objective is to pay for the hosting. So, well, this getting boring from now. So,
Yeah.
the objective is to just keep going on a little bit more.
Regardless, we greatly appreciate support from our patrons.
Thank you.
You are fantastic, and hopefully you can help us grow the brand and get us to a point where we can just pipe the best, most steaming, hottest new games straight into your ears.
Yeah, and you will also allow us to give David the more appropriate medical care.
Oh god, yeah, he could really do with it, couldn't he? He's having a rough time.
Yeah.
Well, and that's all we have time for in this episode. You can catch us over at www.patreon.com/The Last Standee or as The Last Standee on Twitter. And until next time, we have been The Last Standee. So goodbye from Alexis.
From Belgium, au revoir.
And myself. And remember that the second E in Standee is for exposure.